All
Okay.
right, screw it. Well, we're we're live now. For real. Sorry, Tommy, that wasn't very professional. Um,
All
OBS
good.
is not playing well with me at the moment. That's fine. Anyway, hello everybody. Thanks for joining me. It's been a while since I've had a stream. I apologize. I should preface this whole stream. Tommy and I have daughters. They're separated by about 6 months. My wife is at work right now, so at any minute I might have to throw the stream over to Tommy and go deal with my kid and do my pure dad hammer thing. If that happens, that happens. I'm sorry, not sorry. Anyway, Tommy, thank you for coming on my stream. I've known Tommy for a few years now. He's up in the local-ish scene to me. He's a little north near Seattle. So we've met at various tournaments. You were invited to the NoobHammer Invitational. And recently, my dude, you just took first place, 3-0'd an RTT up there, the Alpine Spring RTT. So why don't you tell us a little bit about that and how long you've been playing and why you got into Grey Knights?
Yeah, sure. So, a little bit about myself. I've been playing Grey Knights basically since November 2022. But my enjoyment of Grey Knights really actually started. Uh, they were the thing that actually got me into 40K Lord pretty deep. I was on like a school trip, and we had like this big long layover in Minnesota or something like that, and they took us to the Mall of America, right? And
Nice.
so
I've been there.
I, yeah, and like I went to like a bookstore and I was like, well, I'll get a book, and I just started playing the Dawn of War games, and I was like, this Grey Knight cover looks pretty cool, and then I read like the prologue, and it's like these Grey Knights deep striking into like this demon controlled world that is like boiling flesh, and they're like they're cutting down greater demons of Tzeentch, and I was hooked. And so like I've loved Grey Knights since I was like a teenager. And so I started with Guard when I got into 40K, but I wanted to play Space Marines, and I was like, well, the regular Space Marines are kind of boring. So I ended up kind of folk me like, well, Grey Knights are awesome, so let's do that. And so I
You're
got
not
into it around
wrong.
the yeah, I got into it right around the time the Codex came out in ninth edition, and I basically played that for the rest of ninth.
Okay.
I
So
ended
you
up
and I have been
taking
playing around this, well, around the same amount of time. Yeah.
yeah,
Cool.
yeah, and so um like I played played through most of ninth with Grey Knights, and in April I took like I think it was third or fourth place at Tau Tipping, GT out in Hokum, Washington, right before ninth ended, and took a hiatus when I had my first kid,
Yeah. Crazy.
unsurprisingly. So I've been having to like do the Squidward meme of watching everybody play 10th edition, and luckily, I mean, outside of the joy of having like my daughter, who's awesome, um, I got to avoid the Eldar meta completely because I took basically like a 6 month break from 40K, um, and I've started getting back into it, and so this last weekend I got a chance to get away for Father's Day. It's like, all right, I'm gonna go check out this RTT up at Aegis Games in Bellingham, and was able to. I took a list that I modified from Miles Angrav, who um, he took down a major like a couple weeks ago,
Yeah.
with 5 Dread Knights, Redeemer, 2 Purgations, Strike Squad, and Librarian with a Libby. And so, I really enjoyed the list. It's pretty straightforward to play, but there were some interesting lessons. I learned about where Grey Knights are, and you know how they play. So
Yeah, your list, I noticed you brought those purgation squads and I thought it was really interesting. So Miles is like like part of my coaching group. He's the only other Grey Knight player. So anytime either of us do well, we like bounce ideas off of each other. And he had Psy cannons. I don't think he'll be doing that anymore with the recent indirect nerfs. Stick around for discussion about that. But yeah, the incinerator ones, because you don't care what you hit on.
Exactly.
Is pretty spicy.
Yep.
You want to get into, speaking of, you want to just get into your list? We can just jump straight into it right now.
Yeah, sure.
Cool.
So I guess we'll start.
Let me fire it on over. All right, there it is.
Let me get my
up on the screen, which I just noticed I'm wasting a bunch of screen space. So, hey Ken, what's up? And Damned Legion is in here. Looking good. Looking good.
So it's pretty straightforward. So we've got a regular old Brotherhood Librarian. He attaches to the 5-man Terminator squad. We have 2 Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knights with the standard fixins of Nemesis Demon Hammer, Heavy Incinerator, Heavy Psy Cannon. One of them with an Inescapable Wrath, and the other one with Sigil of Exigence.
Nice.
For Battle Line, mentioned the Brotherhood Terminator squad with an Incinerator. We've got a Strike Marine squad for sticky objectives because the body count is quite low. And I think in every game I played, my opponent was was like, "Oh, you're done?" But yeah, I got like 6 units, man.
Oh damn, man, that's
Like,
wild.
Terminators would start in the Land Raider for some threat projection in the middle, and then it's just a couple purgations, and then I think I always started the Inescapable Wrath, Nemesis Dread Knight, and Deep Strike. And then 2 purgation squads with 4 incinerators each, a Land Raider Redeemer, and then 3 regular Nemesis Dread Knights with the standard loadout.
So 5 NDKs and a Land Raider Redeemer. All of these things have changed significantly the last 24 hours. So what's your favorite tech piece? Like, was it the purgation squads?
Yeah, honestly, like I've been playing around a lot with that 130 point slot of like either purgation squads
or
interceptors or even purifiers in some of the lists I've been messing around with. And I really liked the purgation squads. I think Miles is onto something with those, because what they allow you to do is they allow you to kind of, you plop the Redeemer down and then you can hold the edges and add extra shooting without risking units, really, by just sticking the purgations behind walls. And so the thing I kept having with interceptors was I would send them out, they do the thing, and then they just die.
Yeah.
Right? Like they're up.
Yeah.
But they're not, like, there's enough stuff in the game that is just high enough volume to pick up a squad like that. And so, putting purgation squads in really hard to reach points and kind of be like either action pieces, or they just sit behind a wall, hold things, and add some incidental shooting to the real shooting with the Dread Knights. Really felt good, especially into my game against Votann, where I was spending a lot of the game just clearing out chaff. Same thing with the game in Dukhari, where there's tons of 5-mans running around, and the one of my practice partners is actually a Tau player, and the thing I've noticed is, like, it's pretty easy for Grey Knights to get swamped with chaff if they're a bunch of small MSU units. And so I felt the purgations added that extra little bit to help clear that out, hold points, while the Dread Knights did the heavy lifting.
I'm actually gonna, in the NoobHammer Discord, great plug, you actually sent a photo of how you use your dudes.
Yeah, here, I'll send it to you again.
Yeah, no, I have it up. I need to see if my web browser settings in OBS are still good. Oh, they are.
Yep.
Fantastic. All right, so I'm gonna zoom out here.
Yep.
So this was your second game, and so there are these 3 mid-table objectives, and then the little red circles there are where he hid his purgation squads inside ruins against or right against the walls of a ruin. So if they tried to cut to like use their warriors or even their like melee Hearthkin like axe guys and try to get on those points, he could just 1 CP Overwatch flame the fuck out of them and probably kill them all, or at least kill a lot of them.
You can't indirect Overwatch because
correct. Yes.
Yeah. So, but what it did allow me to do, because by the middle of the game, so right next to that middle ruin, it's actually where I had my Land Raider parked as the game progressed, and then I had Nemesis Dread Knights shooting down the lanes and kind of bouncing around and trying to pull them in different directions. And then I had the purgation squads, and the one in the center picked up a squad of berserks, the one on the bottom killed warriors, and then the next turn deep struck onto his home objective, killed the warriors off of that and unstickied it. Like, the nice thing about them is like they're durable enough to where it takes something actually real to kill them. But they're so good at killing backline chaff or going into like corners to do actions, and you don't feel the need to like, yeah, I'm gonna just send them in, right? They're meant to be played a little more defensively, and it's okay to do that. So I wasn't tempted to just send in the boys, and then they just die. So.
Yeah. I've had kind of the same experience you have with interceptors, where like obviously they're very fast. If you want to spend 1 CP on them and they can shoot, like they can move 24 inches, which is insane, right? And they're flying the whole way in that case, except for the 6-inch move. But anyway, like just an enormous amount of movement. But you're right. Usually by the time they do that, or like if you do the whole, I'm gonna 3-inch deep strike and then shoot and then move 6 and I'm gonna take your home objective. Like, if you can get that for capture enemy outposts on round 1 or 2, like, that's fantastic. But it's also a weird thing to tech into if you're using tactical, because, like, you never know when you're going to pull that card.
Yeah.
And then if you don't pull that card, you could just leave them hanging in the wind and then they die. Yeah. And purgation squads, I mean, they're 1 OC, so they can do actions. They'll be able to do actions in Pariah Nexus as well. So even late game, like if you pull investigate signals, you can drop them in corners. Yeah. They won't do anything, but they'll score you some points.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think, talking about where the army goes in Pariah, like I think I go back and forth of like wanting to go back to Terminators, but like the action economy, I think, in Pariah is going to make that a little untenable for the 30 brick, because I think there's more cards that force you to do actions and you get less points to do those actions, right? So it's like there's capture enemy outpost doesn't exist anymore.
Thank God.
Yeah. But there's like things like Terraform, where you're incentivized to do actions on the objectives to convert them, right? And then like
Banners is back in a way. Like Banners has changed slightly, but I mean, you get a point for the rest of the game if you do that action per objective. That's not a terrible thing. Yeah,
ain't bad.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Like I've been playing with some lists where I still bring a 10-man brick with Drago, just because like he's your big threat, right? Whether or not you actually use him that way. But then I'm thinking like I don't really want to take a 3 brick or 3 brick. I'm thinking like 1 brick and then numerous small units, because I love my Libbies. I know it's a casino, and sometimes you win big and sometimes you lose big, but like the 5-man Terminators with a librarian in it, you can still drop them down their battle line. They can do an action. You can still vortex, because that didn't change, and there's been 1 change, which was completely fine and legitimate. But like, you can still fall back and like vortex. You still do all kinds of stuff. So, I'm leaning that way for my like Libbies. I still want to bring 3 Libbies. Yeah, like I'll bring fewer Dread Knights and more Libbies, just because I don't know, I like them. But
I mean, there's some cool models too. I mean, the rule of cool is, I
Yeah,
think, one of the, you know, my favorite
absolutely.
things.
Well, one of
Yeah.
my yeah, I have a kit bashed Leviathan librarian. I have a completely kit bashed librarian with a Deathwatch heavy Thunderhammer. And then I have a completely kit bashed. He goes back and forth between being a librarian or a grandmaster on foot, like depending on what my list is. But anyway, so Damned Legion asked you, what do you think the hard counter is to your army? And
Retide.
yeah, well,
I think
now,
bodies. Well, yeah, or the hard counter is the data slate.
yeah,
No, I think I kind of alluded to it a little earlier. Like it's super like, and I can talk about this with my game three. I think it shows what can happen when someone has enough OC and bodies to just kind of shove you off points.
mhm,
It ended up being like just a 15-point game, and like uh, it all kind of came down to the fact that like I was able to finally clear stuff out like a turn, towards the end, and so I could catch up. I spent the entire game down on primary,
yeah,
basically. But anything that has enough bodies to really swamp up attacks, because like Grey Knights don't outside of like purifiers or like a 40-man paladin brick, like it can be like killing 20 of something can be a challenge with the army. Like you can mangle it, but
yeah.
like if they've got regenerative abilities, then it's
I mean,
dicey.
it took me a hard time or a long while. It was a hard time. It took me a long while to change my mental game state where like, unless it's a 20-man guardian or like guardian brick or like guardsman brick or like gargoyles, if you charge it with a 10-man terminator brick, odds are you're not wiping it. You're gonna hurt it really badly even,
Mm-hmm.
but like you're gonna leave some model standing a lot of the time. And it took me a while to realize, oh, we're pretty tough. We have AOC in true silver armor. Terminators, like I said, pretty tough. They have 3 OC. You're not really like we're more of a super teleporty tricksy bully army than we are like a punch you in the face do damage army. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so it's like we get on the objective with 32 OC or whatever, right? Then you kill 5 of us or 4 of us. We bring one of them back. Now we're 1.5 inches closer to you than, than we were in our, and we get to charge you and do it again. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's not about like wiping you. It's about having so much shit that you can't shift, or at least shift easily.
Yeah.
And every time you lose a Terminator, it's like, oh, that's 42 points. Oh, that's 42 points. Oh, that's 42 points. Yeah.
But then it comes back and they're like, yes, 42 points.
Right. Yeah. And then you're like, yeah, I actually I went to an RTT as well. I did not do anywhere near as well as you did. And in my last game against Guard, he used some indirect to kill 1 Terminator off of an objective, and he's like, yeah, I got one. And I'm like, actually, dude, that's bad for you. And he's like, what do you mean? And then I'm like, well, I res him and I put him closer to you. And he's like, oh no. So now my whole unit is now 1.5 inches closer to you than it was. Yeah, pretty funny.
You can see the exact moment where his heart broke.
Yeah, precisely. So Damn Legion is also asking, are Nemesis Dread Knights Psychic Dreads? And why don't Thousand Sons have Psychic Dreads? Thoughts?
They're, I would say they are Psychic Dreads, but they're not.
Well, they have the
Dreadnoughts.
Psyker keyword. Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. They're not Dreadnoughts for sure. Yeah.
They're Dread Knights. So they're different, I think.
They have a Terminator strapped to the front of them.
Mm-hmm.
So then they also ask, what's your favorite unit or strat combo to use?
I love the heck out of the Missive Deimos Rapid Ingress combination. That's my favorite strat combo. My favorite unit combo is when I can get a solid connection on a 10-man paladin squad with my grandmaster, and I turn on the Dev Wound strat and just erase something, it feels so good. Like, oh, you've got a thing. No, you don't. Not anymore. You don't get to save. Do not pass go. My old list that I was running before the NDK spam had an anti-Satan tech of the Grandmaster and Paladins, and man, that guy just that list erased Satans for fun, and it was just so good at killing them because you just dumped Psy cannons into them and bolters before you went in, and then you just did your free strat, and then the Satan was gone. He was like,
Yeah.
okay, cool, I'm gonna do that a couple times, and then the Hypercrypt army's destroyed. So.
Well, do you want to get into your matchups then?
Yeah,
I have
sure.
your notes here. Let me go back to our notes from earlier. Doop, doop, doop. Scroll way
Yeah, I
up.
think I sent you the score breakdown.
I did. So this is very cool. And unfortunately, I was super busy all day, and so I didn't get a chance to like get this into the streaming software. But Tommy actually sent me the screen caps from the tabletop battle apps of the actual like the scores and how much CP they had. And well, I guess not.
Yeah, I didn't
Yeah.
track that.
Anyway, like the scores and what secondaries they drew and stuff. So your first game was against Dukhari.
Yep.
And it was priority targets, which I am so glad that mission's gone in the new pack.
Yeah. Yeah, that was an interesting one. And I think it was actually my second game into Dukhari in 10th edition. And like Dukhari have teeth, man. Like there were a couple of instances where like I just did not respect them, and like I lost like 2 Dread Knights in a turn, and I was like, ooh, Jesus. And so I kind of had to slow the game down. Looking at the score, I'm realizing I didn't put in primary for myself on round 4.
Oh yeah, look at that. You didn't. Whoopsie. So you should have won 96 to 53?
Yeah.
Instead of 86 to 53? Oh boy.
Yeah. So turn 1,
hey Derek. Bye Derek.
Hi, bye. So the first round, I ended up going first, and so I realized, like, with priority targets, like, it's going to be impossible to keep them back on primary. My opponent only scored 8 secondary that round, but still managed to score 35 primary.
Yeah. So I want to remind everybody real quick. Priority targets is a one where primary doesn't matter until it really, really matters. So like, it's the one where you can only score 10 primary every round, including your home objective, 5 per, until the end of the 5th round, where what you hold at the end, which means like going second is even more important. And then you can score an additional up to 15. So you can score 25 primary at the end of the 5th round. So like, especially if you're going to a tournament and you run into somebody who's like a slow player and you went second, like this is the worst mission to pull.
Yep.
Because you want to get to that 5th round and you want to get to the bottom of the 5th round and score all your points.
Yeah, pour one out for Castle and Crow. He caught some strays this data slate for no reason.
Yeah, rip Crow. Hi Tony.
So I actually have a photo that shows the deployment and kind of like where everything was at the end of turn. Like I went first, and basically this is where everything was at the end of turn 1. Which I think I sent. I'll send it to you now.
I don't know if we're gonna have a lot of time for photos.
No, that's fine.
Unfortunately, but
it's cool. But basically, the idea was I only need to hold 1 for the first couple turns, and then I'll just catch up later. So basically, I created a castle around the home objective. It was on terrain layout 3, which has a big terrain piece that goes across the center. And so I just staged up behind that, and waited for the Dukhari player to come forward and start swirling around the bottom half. And once he started swirling around the bottom half, I ended up having that be my go turn. I deployed all my Dread Knights down on the shooting lanes in the bottom, wiped out the bottom corner, and killed like a big chunk of his army. And while having purgations up above, holding that second point, and just basically sitting behind a wall and being really tricky to dig out. The idea there is like if he moves over, I either overwatch or miss it depending on what's moving. And so if he moves those, I think they're Talos. Those have
Yeah.
enough. Those have enough to really actually do something. And so, you know, move them out, sack the 5 points, and save the activation for later time.
Yeah,
So
the Talos are like T7. They can actually be really tanky with the homunculus nearby. I can't
they got a
remember the name of their
pain,
leader.
and then
Yeah.
they also have like Melta Tails and stuff like that, which into power armor will just nuke them. So
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that one ended up going pretty well. I was able to control the board, kill. He spent most of his time trying to kill the Dread Knights, which left him not much opportunity to actually play the secondary game, and so was able to come out on that one, 86-53. Um, and so yeah, that's the way that first
I
game went.
I always feel bad as Grey Knights going into Dukhari because if you have Dread Knights and you're not dumb with them, like you kind of just win. And I say that like I'm not trying to be super arrogant when I say that. It's just like the Psy Cannon profile is so perfect to kill their transports because they're all like T9. They're T6 with the Venoms. Like they have
Scourges with Haywires do some gnarly work into Dread Knights though.
Absolutely, but like I mean like if you want a go turn where you're like I'm gonna trade my Dread Knights for your transports and now you don't have an army rule, right? Like that's a good turn for you, right? Like if you drop them from having like 3 Raiders and a whatever the one with the 3 guns is and like 3 Venoms to just having like 2 Venoms and you lose 3 Dread Knights to do that, that's actually perfect for you. Because now you're like teleporting all over, grabbing primary, scoring, and they're trying to trudge up the board with their T3, and you're just casually sweeping them aside with Stormbolter fire. You almost don't have to charge them unless they're incubi, it kind of feels like you're already, if you're aware of the meta and how that game, which I think is why they bring more Talos now. But anyway, I always feel kind of bad going into Dukhari because it feels like that matchup is already so weighted in our favor. They can't hide their boats because we can just teleport to where we can see them and kill them. You know what I mean? Like it feels a little bad.
One bit of interesting tech from it was they and this has actually happened in like every Dukhari game I played, is they've started bringing the flyers, and those flyers actually
the bombers
shoot hard.
Yeah,
they shoot hard.
Well,
and
they have like 4 Dark Lances or something on them.
They've got like a gun on it that's like strength 8, AP 3, and then another one that's like AP 4 or something crazy like that, and they fly over you and do mortals, and like they just are really good at killing the chaff, right? Killing your strike squads that are sitting behind walls. Really good at killing, purgation squads that might be sitting behind walls, and they're not terrible in terms of like the volume of fire into like a Dread Knight. So like those are things to watch out for Dukhari, because like that was a bit of a surprise for me. The first time I went up against them was just like how hard they shoot. So
yeah, I mean Darkland spam can just take you out, right? Like Haywire can take you out. Our army lives and breathes by our 4-up invul. You know? Like if you spike saves in a critical time and like a Dread Knight stays alive at 3 wounds when it should have by all rights be dead, that's another turn that Dread Knight gets to kill 2 transports. Because it shoots one and charges the other, you know what I mean? So
exactly.
It's a wild matchup. And any like Dukhari feels finally Stormbolters like feel really good. Yeah, because like you're wounding on 3s instead of 5s or 6s and stuff. It's real nice. So the bomber is the Void Raven, I think it's called.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah.
Something Void Bomber.
Yeah, and it's 215 points, which sounds inexpensive to us, but I know it's actually very expensive. So
Yeah.
and the bombs like never do anything. So it has it. I see. It has a dark scythe, which is perfect for killing marines. Like perfect.
Yep.
Strength 8, -4, 2 damage, 6 attacks, and then it has 2 Void Lances, and then it has Void Raven missiles, which can either be anti-Terminator or anti-1 wound. So, you know.
Yep.
And then Bladed Wings for melee.
Hell yeah.
But
Dip them down.
yeah. Did your guy run one of these? The bombers?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. But again, like it's T9, it's 12 wounds. So like one Dread Knight's not gonna kill it, probably.
Every time I played, the one that I'm trying to focus down always lives on 1 wound. I ended up having to kill this thing with grenades because my librarian came down, rolled a 1 on the vortex of doom, and I was like, well, fuck, I gotta throw grenades at it. And so
how fun.
yeah, threw a grenade into the engine cowling or something, I guess.
As it flew by.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So so round 2 you go into Votann. And this one you won 100 to 53.
Yeah. So this was actually my first game ever into Leagues of Votann on GK. Which I was really surprised with how much stuff they can bring, and I think it like I was nervous the first couple rounds, but basically I waited for kind of I waited for board state to develop its sites of power, so all of the stuff is in the middle. So I wanted to wait until opportunities presented themselves and just tried to carve off the chaff. But one of the things that I did was, since I went second, I sent my Grandmaster Dread Knight with the Sigil of Exigence to the back right corner. And so what it forced him to do was, like, he ended up having to send the not Warriors, Hearth Guard, the Terminator equivalents.
Yeah, the
He ended up
Terminus.
having to send those back into the corner to try and deal with it. I ended up just AOCing and chiefing a few more saves than I probably should have. I saved all of the big hammers from the Einhorn champion.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so that
that
was
guy
huge.
slaps. So
Dude, yeah. He told me what it did. Like, one of them went through and did like casually 8 damage, and it was like one of the only things that went through, and I was like, oh, okay, I'm glad I saved the other ones on this, man.
Yeah, that dude
Like,
slaps.
yeah, it was a wild game, and like, yeah, it was 100 to 53, but there were like Dan and I talked about this after the game, and like there were some pretty significant inflection points to where, like, I think if the dice had gone one way or the other, like if he picks up that Grandmaster who ends up getting out of the way that turn and going sitting on a point for sites of power for the rest of the game, like, it's a very different game. And then like there were some really wild exchanges in the center when we started brawling over the midpoints where um he I had a Dread Knight that was on 3 wounds, um and he charges the
Hi, Michelle.
Einhard champion into it, does the little belly bounce for mortals, brings it down to 1 wound. I save all of the attacks and then turn around and swing. I miss with 2 of the 5 hits, and then roll a 1 and a 2 for all my others to wound. So like basically the combat just didn't happen.
Yeah.
And that happened like a few times. But I ended up just like focusing on primary. I was able to zero him out on primary one of the turns, I think.
Let me look. Actually, sorry, I have I have all of my notes all over
no,
the place.
I was able to get him down to keep him on 3 primary basically for the back half of the game.
Yes, which is so around 4 and 5, he scored 3 primary. So his like primary started high and then went low, and yours kind of started low at and then skyrocketed, which is very Grey Knight.
Yeah,
so
that's kind of the way you want to play it. It's like score projection and like just playing it slow.
Also, Rip Dan pulling capture enemy outposts on the first turn.
But I mean, it's command points, right?
Yeah, but that army, if you pick the right grudge target the first like turn, you're gonna get what, 3 on round 2 or something.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't know. But I wish we had CP regen.
Yeah.
Meh. Anyway,
it's a grudging.
But he came down from Canada, right?
Yeah, he came down. There's like a couple other people from the mid-table tactics crew who came down,
cool.
and we get a lot of Canadians at the Aegis events.
Yeah. Well, everybody in Canada lives within like what, 80 miles of the border or something.
Yeah. I think one of the events we had to like delay the start by like 15-20 minutes because people were stuck at the border crossing.
No.
But
awful.
So yeah, that was the gist of the game too. It was Sites of Power is just a wild mission where like
that's the one where if you have leaders on the objectives you earn more, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So my librarian and my grandmaster dread knights just kind of held the middle, and that was that. So
is Sites hanging around for Pariah?
I don't know.
Yeah, we don't have to look it up. It's like one of those things where it's fun at this point, like this inflection of the complete change of this game, where like I talk to some friends and they absolutely know the answer to one thing, but then they're like kind of wishy-washy on other stuff that like I'm absolutely certain of. Just because like we focus on different aspects of the game just naturally, right? So I thought maybe you would just know like right away, like no, like fuck Sites of Power, it's gone. I'm glad it's gone. Or I mean, I don't know.
I hope it's gone, but
priority targets, man. Because at my
how did supply drop make it through?
How did servo skulls?
Yeah.
And a servo skull-ish mission is still in, but they fixed the blatantly obvious problems with servo skulls.
It's just big servo skull pushing their agenda, you know.
Oh man. Anyway, so we're almost done with the RTT part. I was actually gonna say, so at the RTT I went to, our last game, right? So like this is game 3. People are tired. Like folks are, like been on their feet for 12 hours now, or 11-ish hours at this point. And priority targets was our last mission. And I'm like, please God, not again. Like making this the last mission is so bad because like everybody's tired. You want to be done. Like you're having fun, but like you kind of want to be done. And then it's like, but I went second, and so I'm like, I want to have my full game. and my 5th turn, like it was a back and forth game where like one of us would lead by 3 points, and then one of us would lead by 2 points until the bottom of 5, where I scored 30 points, and it was 92 to like 67 or something. But like, because priority targets, man, like we teleport all over the place. We have high OC units. We can be anywhere we want. I can 3-inch deep strike. Like I want to, and I went second. Like I gotta get to that last, like the bottom of like round 5, because I knew it would be worth 30 to 35.
Yep. It's.
Yeah.
I hope that mission is gone. I gotta look at it closer. But,
it's just anything that's gonna front load or like ass load.
Yeah.
That amount of points, like that's just not.
You mean like secret missions?
Yeah, I don't think those are gonna be in the game very long, man. But
I hope not.
Yeah, secret missions are like, I saw the one for Grey Knights, which is like at the end of the game, be on your opponent's home objective with your warlord, and I'm like, okay.
All right.
I can 3-inch deep strike with Drago anywhere I want.
Yeah.
Like,
Drago's
like,
just gonna windmill slam those 20 points into the,
yeah,
the
exactly.
fact that you don't stop scoring primary after you select a distributor mission, I think is that
Yeah,
and like
we'll see.
hidden information, but we'll talk about that
Yeah.
in a bit. So last mission.
So now you're on the top table.
Yeah.
It's high stakes. It's a grown man playing Plastic Army Men versus another grown man playing Plastic Army Men.
It's big deal.
Big deal. How'd you feel going in?
How'd I feel going into it? I was a little tired, and because I'm, in my 30s now and dying, but
We're
no,
all dying, man.
Honestly, like I didn't think anything of it because like my like all of my opponents at my RTT, like all the opponents I ever face at the Aegis RTTs are just like super chill people. It's like a really nice community. And like this one would just felt like playing games with a buddy, right?
Yeah. Which is how it should be, really.
Yeah, like I can't think of any really toxic experience I've ever had. So, but like, yeah. So it was Chosen Battlefield, which that is a interesting one to play on the last mission.
Is that the one where you just get swamped in CP?
No, that's the one where like attacker defender, like I forget who actually. No, you roll off to see who deploys the objectives first. You drop the objectives on the map, right?
Okay.
And he was playing Awakened Dynasty Necrons,
which I thought was pretty cool. Like it's
neat. It was a neat list because it had 20 like 2 20-man bricks of warriors, some wraiths. The thing it did not have though, which I was probably why I won, but was like it didn't have a ton of high AP shooting. So Armor of Contempt was clutch.
Yeah.
I just didn't really lose much through the game. He had just some like Scorpec destroyers, which are actually surprisingly decent.
Aren't they 3 damage? Like anything 3 damage is anything 3 damage is like real scary into Grey Knights.
Yeah, and then like the Grey Knights have like the NDKs like are T8, so like they're not too hard to wound. And
no,
like
there's a lot of strength like 6 melee and shooting out there. Like monsters have a lot of like strength 6, strength 12, melee.
And then like and then conversely, he also took the character that gives the aura of -1 AP, which really mutes the damage of my flamers, really mutes the damage of like the AP2.
Oh, interesting. What's the range on that?
Yeah. I think like 6 inches, but basically. What?
I'm just like, so before the stream, we were talking about some of the changes and how like the librarians have purged soul, which if you do the hazardous version has precision. And I've been, I'm not saying you should build a list that does this or you should rely on it, but like I've been thinking like there are low wound like leaders out there. Necrons are one of them. Guard or another, right? Or like if you can kill Ursula's Creed in like turn 2, you neuter Guard. Well, not neuter them, but you make their life a lot harder, right? Because just a lot, like they have a lot fewer orders they can throw out. So I think of things like that, and I think of Vor like Purge Soul is a 24-inch range. Like you could do that like precision as long as you can draw line of sight. Like you can kill that unit potentially. You probably need all 3 librarians to do it reliably, but it's 3 damage if it gets through.
If it goes through, like it's really nice into GSC. Like GSC, like you just pop their characters out of their army.
Yeah, and then if they regen the unit, like who cares? They don't have the leader in it. Well,
the characters make the units decent. So
yeah.
But yeah, like that, it's Illuminator Cesaris, and he's got a 4 Feel No Pain all the time.
Oh well, then throw out my idea because like a 4 up Feel No Pain just The math
And
is not okay.
yeah, and then when you kill him, like he stands back up for 1 command point at half wounds, and you're like, cool, I'm gonna chew through like a good, and he has nine wounds to start with.
Oh, well
Like,
then, yeah, you're definitely not gonna just
yeah.
blink him out anyway, so.
But I did because I focused my whole army on him because it put him out early. So
Got it.
I just dove right into the Thunderdome. But yeah, so that one was my opponent did a great job of controlling primary and really just staying in the game, and you know, trying to keep me off of primary. Um, I got I think the game came down to let me get it opened up. Yeah, like he did 10, 15, 10, but by the end I had functionally tabled him. And so I was able to catch up on primary on the bottom
Yeah.
turn.
I mean,
So
that's what won you the game, was
yep.
like, so it was 86-71.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a pretty tight game, 15 points. So bottom
Yep.
of the turn 5, you won 15 for primary, and then you got 8 for capture enemy outposts and 5 on cleanse, and like that
That was
round
it.
cinched you the game, yeah.
Yep.
And
It
you
was.
completely knocking him off of primary on that same turn.
Yep.
Like, yeah.
Yeah. Because basically what ended up happening was on the fourth turn, I was able to focus down the warriors, and then I was able to the conversely, I was able to do uh, I basically I misted my Terminators out of the center, rapid ingressed them near the home objective, stole it for capture enemy outpost, and zeroed him on a primary for that turn. Um, so yeah, it was a really close one, and like it was it really came down to um, being able to kind of control the game towards the end of it, and you know, um, as I was saying, like it just uh, the the list's weakness is armies with lots of bodies that can hold primary, and this like it really kind of drove home like why you need to have anti-chaff type units in these types of lists, because like you can just get bullied over by someone with enough bodies. So yeah, that was my RTT. I got you know, I won, and then
Yeah.
went home. I got pizza afterwards. It was pretty nice.
But did you
So
get bagels?
no, I did not.
Hmm.
Pizza did not come on a bagel that night.
Yeah. So,
So,
well, when pizza's on a bagel, it's a party anytime, right?
yeah, exactly.
Or did I miss up that jingle? I think
No,
I
I
messed
think I
that
think
up.
you got it.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
but yeah,
Tommy's name online is Pizza Bagels, so I'm making fun of
yeah,
him about that.
yeah,
So great, man. I mean, you had fun. You got to beat up on some Canadians, which is great. It
yeah.
sounds like you learned a lot. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It was a good time. Great way to spend a Saturday. If anybody's in the area, it's like just an hour and change north of Seattle to Bellingham, and it's good for a day RTT, and yeah.
Yeah,
So
cool. Well, I know
check them
why
out.
most of you tuned in. Um, and like, congratulations, Sami, RTT winner. Is this your first win, or is this your second?
Um, I've tied for first at RTTs before.
Okay.
This is the first one, then I was like, definitively like, yep. So
Cool.
yeah.
But as all of you might have heard, the game changed wildly this morning. I woke up at like 4 a.m. because I had to pee. And I'm like, isn't it like noon in the UK right now? And I popped open my phone, or turned on my phone. It's not, anyway, you know what I mean. Open my phone, and I'm like, oh, look at this. And then I spent an hour and a half sitting in bed just reading like a fucking gremlin, scrolling through everything. So the game is basically 11th edition at this point. 10 and a half is what some folks are saying, but like, holy moly, they changed a lot. And like, if you go to the Grey Knight Facebook groups, take all of their comments with a grain of salt. Not that they don't have enough salt for you already, but like, I think Grey Knights are in a commanding position at the start of Pariah Nexus, personally. I really want to see how this meta like shakes out, because the big sharks in the water that were like targeted at killing Grey Knights have been hit in the balls. T-Suns can no longer turn off armor saves entirely. Indirect has been wildly nerfed. Good, because indirect is the least interesting thing in the game. Yeah, Deathwatch unfortunately still Deathwatch got enough changes that you know that Games Workshop knows they exist, but not enough to make it so it ever will fucking matter, unfortunately. Like the Proteus kill team is still horrifically overcosted. I feel bad for my Deathwatch, but Grey Knights, we have battle line Terminator units. I thought librarians would get slapped with another 10-point increase. They did not. Crow got hit with what, 15?
Yeah, he's up to like 90 now.
Yeah, which is like, some folks are like, but why? And I know why, or at least I mean, I don't know why. I don't work for Games Workshop, but like, they're releasing an edition with Battleline that's making Battleline really, really good to bring. So you're going to see a lot more like heavy intercessors. You're going to see, a lot more of these units that are, these small units are there to like just score points and do actions. And the Purifier Brick evaporates infantry. And nearly anything in the game that's battle line is infantry, except I think the only thing that pops in mind right away, and I'm probably wrong just because the game's so complicated. The only thing that pops into my head right away that isn't are breachers for AdMech, but then now they have call, and call gives like an aura of battle line and blah blah blah. So that's almost not even worth mentioning. But anyway, I think that's why they nerfed Crow, and 15 points is not that much. Like if you really want that tech, you can still bring that tech.
You just don't take Inescapable Wrath, and your Crow's paid for. Like,
yeah,
it's not that big a deal, I think. But
yeah.
it was more, my outrage was mainly just on principle of
Go ahead, tell me more. We have not actually had this conversation.
it just felt like
About Crow specifically?
About Crow, yeah.
Yeah.
I was just like, man, like I finally was like to the point where like, all right, I'm gonna start putting them on tables, and I started experimenting with lists that had Crow, and like now I'm like, man, it's only 15 points more, but for some reason that's a stumbling block for me.
So I have the points up on the screen. So this edition is the one where I painted. I put my purifiers on Stern Guard veteran legs, so they all have the like white flowing like tabards. I repainted all of them. I painted Crow. I think Crow's sword looks amazing. I have never put those units on the table, but I've spent hours and hours and hours and hours modeling, doing like green stuff work on them to like fill the seams between the torsos and all that stuff, painting them, and I've still never used them. I will one edition. I know it'll happen, but like, yeah, Crow went up. He's 90 points now. Grandmaster is 95, to put that in perspective. Brother Captain's 90. Storm Ravens went up. I think that Storm Ravens got hit in the general nerf for like all Storm Ravens game wide because of Iron Storm, which also got punted in the dick pretty hard. Dread Knights went up 10 points, fine, whatever. Land Raider Redeemer. I got to play my like 6 games with my Redeemer that I just painted. And now he goes back on the shelf because he's 285 points now. Which I thought they could just fix that by like nerfing 1 AP off the Flamestorm cannons, and then you could even drop the price by like 15 points and it would still be good because 2 damage flamers are really rare in the game. But now it would drop to where you can't immediately get like 8 hits and then kill like 2 custodian guards when they move next to you. But they didn't do that. Land Raider Crusaders down. For anybody just listening to audio, I am waving my finger in the air as a like whoop-de-doo. Everything else though unchanged. Like I'm a little sad to see power armor didn't go down a little bit more. I'm happy to see Terminators weren't changed, and I am surprised to see that Librarians did not change.
I'm surprised Dread Knights didn't go up by more, if I'm honest with you. Like, a 10-point hike is not, I mean, what's that, like 5%? Like,
well, they were 185, right? And now they're 205.
No, they were 195 before.
Well, I mean, they were 195,
yeah,
right? But like,
like,
and then they were buffed, and then they gave us the better side cannon, and then 185 was very, and then like tank shock, which obviously also changed.
Yeah.
No, Grey Knights cannot take the repulsor. We have all the old models. That's it. So so Rhino is good. Razorback's good. We don't have access to Predators, which is still weird to me, but okay. Land Raiders are good. Thunderhawk even. We can bring our 805 point undeployable monstrosity. We can't bring a drop pod. Why would you drop pod when you can teleport, my dude? I know why you would in the game. Like in the game you can drop down turn 1 blah blah blah, but I mean, like, you know, come on. Like the Grey Knights, they ride in style. They teleport. They don't need to wait for a drop pod. Anyway, when I looked at the points, which is the first things that I like actually looked at, I was very surprised to not see the Librarians go up. If you look at the data slate, very interesting. So they changed all of the abilities that allow you not to be targeted with ranged, aside from low not. So haloed in Soulfire, which was specifically called out here, is now 18 inches, not 12. You still won't use haloed in Soulfire. Now it's worse, but this does, you know, when the CSM index, was it the index that hit or would the book first hit? And the Nurgle Forge Fiends could be 12-inch retroactively 1 CP lone opt.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
That was a CSM Nurgle strat.
Yeah.
On their index. That was a fun time.
Yeah. So this is just a blanket, like there are no more 12-inch like deny bubbles aside from lone opt specifically, which is good. Because this like this removes that ambiguity where it's like, well, this army and this unit does get 12, but this other army doesn't get 12, right? So that's gone.
I think that change is like kind of a theme that permeates throughout a lot of the data slate changes, where it's like there's a lot of quality of life changes that make things more unified in how the game is structured and played.
Yeah.
You know, like CP reroll, for example, is don't have.
Yeah. They added a ton to it. Yeah.
Yep. They made rules that match how people actually play, where it's like you don't have to. Previously, if you wanted to actually do command point rerolls the right way, you had to slow roll. But they added a stanza to it that allows you to just reroll anything from a fast roll which I think is a nice quality of life change outside the regular points changes and all the rules changes that they're doing. So pivoting's cool too.
Damn Legion is in chat. Talking about when Deathwatch could teleport like 2 ironclad dreadnoughts and just eat some vehicles for breakfast. The pivot thing, this is a big deal. So it didn't matter much with the Dreadknights because they moved 14 inches. I started playing with that Land Raider Redeemer in my last like 6 games or so, and suddenly I'm like, how the hell do I measure this?
Yeah.
Right? Like I need to scooch my butt half an inch to move forward 8 inches, and then I need to scooch my butt 6 inches, and now I'm way out of movement. How does this work? Like, so the like pivot is really great. Effect, like the easy way to explain this is if you have a round base, you can pivot for free, which is most infantry. If you have an oval base or no base and you just measure to your hull, you have to subtract 2 inches and then you can pivot infinitely. So let's take the Grey Knight Land Raider Redeemer, has a movement range of 12. If you know you have to actually pivot at any point, you just move 10. And then you can pivot it as much as you want and move 10. So that's just way easier. That speeds up the movement phase. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and I think it's also like another example of like playing it. I guarantee you anybody who's played Warhammer has messed up like and inadvertently cheated by like moving more than they should have, because like trying to measure that, you have to get like a protractor out and like measure the angle and shit, and it's just like not a good mechanic. And I think it's a clean way to do it. I think there's some ambiguity they might have to FAQ for things that have like longer hulls, right? So like Doomsday Arc, for example, like does
That's
it
fair.
if it needs to charge, does this mean that like it gets 2 inches of free movement and like it now rotates and gained 2 inches of movement because the hull is longer? And there's some stuff, like probably some kinks to work out with it, but I think it's a good change, and I think it's I think it'll be I think it's good.
How do you do with hot sauce, Tommy?
I have actually done the full Hot Ones challenge. I have done the
nice.
bomb. I have done.
That's the worst, apparently.
Yeah, it was terrible. Like
What's
I
up,
remember, Jose? I remember just like my whole body tingling when I ate it, and it just like it tasted like metal. It was not good.
I like a good, like, my spasal tolerance is way higher than your average white American. Like, Indian food will still mess me up. Really hot Thai food can still mess me up. But like for the most part, I like to sweat. I like that feeling where like I get, but I will watch hot ones, and the last dab is like 1.4 million on the Scoville scale, and I'm like, I don't know. So my buddy Tony is like, I want to watch a game of Warhammer where every move a unit takes, you have to like eat one spicy wing.
Tell you what, if you like, whenever you do the next like NoobHammer Invitational, I will do that.
Oh man!
And if people do like $5 a wing or something like that.
Yeah, dude, it's wild. I'm just gonna scroll through these real quick. Firing deck, slight nerf. Basically, it just means that you can't be like. So I think some Space Marine players were doing this. They'd have like eliminators that pop out, shoot, and then pop back in, and then the Rhino or whatever, the repulsor would fire with the like eliminator guns again. You can no longer do that, which is fine. Not like that was game breaking anyway, but that's fine. Indirect fire is a big one. This is huge. So basically indirect can only hit on 4+ now. It says an unmodified hit roll of 1 to 3 always fails. So I'm not entirely sure. Like, I know the Scout Sentinel has the scouting ability where it specifically says that any units firing with the indirect fire ability can ignore the penalties to indirect fire, to hit roll from indirect fire. So I'm wondering how that works. If anybody knows for sure, please let me know. Tommy and I were actually talking about this before
Yeah.
the game.
I think it functions, my take on it is like it functions similarly to like the Scout Sentinel ability functions similarly to Mortarian's ability, right? Where you ignore modifiers and you can shoot at your regular ballistic skill. And I think the way that it's written with indirect fire, it's similar to how Overwatch is written, where it's like you can only hit on a 6. It doesn't matter. Hit modifiers, nothing. Like these are your success criteria, and so it'll be interesting to see how the rule lawyers litigate this one. But hopefully it's just you can't mess with it. No, do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
Yeah, because I mean, I don't know how much you guys have been playing into guard recently, but when they show up with 2 basilisks and a mana core, it's real boring. So yeah, I'm not sorry to see it gone personally. This is gonna, so there, I'm gonna do a slight like pivot. This is usually a Grey Knight like podcast stream, whatever you want to call it, show. Guard got wildly like mixed up here. Their army rule changed. Like infantry always gain lethal hits, not only if they sit still, but like infantry always gain lethal hits into infantry now. Their tanks and vehicles always gain lethal hits into like monsters or vehicles now. They don't have to sit still. That's great. But the current way that you've seen guard play, if you've gone to a competitive tournament, that's gone. They're gonna have to completely redesign the way that they play the game now. So that's a good thing. And a bad thing, because like if you just got into the game and you bought your mana core and your basilisk, like now you might be thinking you're only going to bring the basilisk for like the minus movement or something. I don't know. I'm not a guard player, but guard, and then their reinforcement strat can only be used once a game now. That's huge. I know there were entire guard like cavalry armies that I've seen played on stream, where their main goal was to stack up CP and then keep spawning back in these like mounted units constantly. That's gone. Tommy, how many games do you have into guard in 10th, and how do you feel about the general guard changes?
The general vibes and stuff. Yeah, no, I think I have I don't have a ton, like I have a small handful, like maybe like 3 or 4. But yeah, like I think it Grey Knights are a hide behind walls and come get me army, and playing into any indirect, um whether that's like guard gun lines or the triple plague burst crawler lists out of Death Guard, like they just didn't feel fun to play. It's just like I like my army gets turned off by your army rule and what you're trying to do with it, and you're incentivized to play with that. And I think the game is going to be in a healthier spot post this. I think you'll still take damage behind the wall, but it won't be eye-watering, and you won't lose like half a Terminator squad in a single activation. So I think it's good. Good for the health game, good for keeping things fun. So yeah, that's my thoughts on it.
Yeah. For your beer hammer games, you'll probably see some indirect still. Competitively, like you're not gonna see a top table guard army hit up with like a bunch of indirect now. Like it's effectively dead at that level. And that's okay because again, like, you know, we all know that in real war you want a one-sided fight. Like you want your drones and your space missiles and your fucking RD to kill everything like before it can possibly hurt you. But this is a war game. It's supposed to be a game. It's supposed to be fun. And indirect was not fun. So mortal wounds. Actually, mortal wounds haven't changed at all. Devastating wounds though changed significantly. So they're back to where they caused dev wounds, but they don't spill over, which means Drago got a buff. So
yeah.
And if there are any abilities out there, which I can't think of any off the top of my head, but if there are any psychic delivered devastating wound abilities, Librarian's leading unit also gained a buff. T-Suns might have something like that. Like I don't know if Magnus has a ranged attack ability that's like dev wounds and psychic. I could see that. I don't know, but so Drago's unit just got tankier into dev wounds. You can now save him on a 4-up Feel No Pain. That's potentially big. Hazardous. They have a whole bunch of what I thought was really interesting, and maybe this has been here since the last one, and I just like didn't like notice. Is they went through every characteristic that's on the top of every data sheet in the whole game, and they implied its maximums and minimums, which like lets me know that they're planning effects that will interact with those maximums and minimums. So like you can never have a leadership better than 4, ever. You can never have a leadership worse than 9. Okay. I don't. Was that in there before, Tommy? Do you know?
No, it wasn't. But I think I think it's nice. In addition to it opens up that design space of like, can we have ways to modify that up and over? But it also like clarifies like dumb arguments at the tabletop of like, well, actually, it's modified over this, and it's like, no, there's a cap. Like it can kind of like end those like stacking buff arguments that people with a lot of time on their hands try to get into because they find these little sentences.
Yeah, I mean, the only one I can think of off the top of my head is like if you have a Tyranids player with a bunch of Barbagants, and they're like, I'm gonna fire 3 Barbagants into your intercessor squad, and now they can't move. It's like, well, that's not how that works. Like they still have a minimum move of 1, which is still ungodly slow, but like, you know what I mean. They still can't be rendered immovable. They can still move in some way. Dev wounds, extra attacks. I don't think we have anything in our codex or index that brings extra attacks at all, which like it's kind of a travesty that the Dread Knight doesn't have extra attacks on the fist.
Or like its feet or something. You think
I don't like
clops, you know?
Extra attack 3 from a fist. Like I'd take that. Probably will never make a difference, but it's thematic and fun. Dev wounds wildly change, like I said. So like AP can never be worse than 0. They call that out. It'd be funny if it started to heal or something. Like it's so. Anyway. So going to the stratagems, some of these changed. So like Insane Bravery is more like it was in 9th. I actually had a game where before this change, they used Insane Bravery after a unit failed. And I'm like, hey man, I don't think you can do it that way. I think you have to declare it before you roll, which is how it was in 9th. And then he showed me the strat, and at the time it actually said you use this after it fails. So now it says just before you take, you must spend this. So if you want to Insane Bravery now, you have to like think about it in your command phase. You can't roll, see what it is, and then use it. Like you have to be like, if I want to score my 5 points or whatever, I have to spend this now. Grenades was changed. You can't fall back or advance and use it now. That's fine. Command reroll was basically completely rewritten because of how many things that they added to it. It used like you can now use it for a desperate escape roll, a hazardous roll, and then they add this whole caveat about fast rolling. Is there anything in here that you care about, Tommy, or am I like you're supposed to be my guest, and now I feel like I'm just reading the Bible. You know what I mean?
It's all good. There's a lot that got changed. I mean, I think, I've been neglecting my obligations at work to try and read as much as I can today, and like I still haven't been able to catch it. Yeah. But I think the big changes for me are around command point reroll, just quality of life, fast. You can do it on fast rolling. I like what they did to grenade strat, even though like it was really nice to advance the librarian squad forward and do a grenade strat and a vortex of doom, like, and just dump some mortals on some poor target. The other thing that they also added is this grenades model, and so if you attach a,
look at that.
if you get if you get a model that has grenades keyword, you can't just string it out with like some chaff to actually get it going, which is an important distinction, right? The unit gets the keyword, but it's just like the only thing that can actually cast it, so to speak, is the model that has it. So
right. So for instance, in Grey Knights, right? Like if you are leading, my baby is crying. Ask some questions of Tommy, guys. I'll be right back.
Sure. I guess I'll keep going through some of the stratagem changes, right? So the other thing that they changed that I think is pretty impactful for Grey Knights at this point is the changes to tank shock. For those that don't know, tank shock went from being the strength of your weapon to the toughness of the hull that you're actually doing it on. So it's not a massive change for most profiles that you'd be doing tank shock on, but it is a decent. It's like about half the mortals that you would have on like a Nemesis Dread Knight chassis, right? So on average, you would do about 5 mortal wounds. But now I think you'll generally do 2, maybe 3 if you spike. But yeah, for the most part, it's that it's not going to be the 1 CP sweep profile that it used to be moving forward. So yeah, I think I agree with you, Joshua. I think like I will miss it. It was fun when like getting off you'd have like a like a 5-man like a 5-man Guardian squad or some Eldar chaff, and you just like tank shock into one thing and then like pile in and smash the crap out of like a vehicle next to it. I will miss that, but it's probably better for the game that doesn't exist. Damned Legion. Does GK have any T12 and 13? The Land Raiders, I think, are the only thing that I can think of that have it. Let me pull up some data sheets and see if we can figure this out. But I think it's just the Land Raider chassis. What's the tough? I mean, a Thunderhawk gunship maybe. What's the toughness on that guy? Yeah, Thunderhawk is T12, but I don't think you'll be I don't think you'll be tank shocking with a Thunderhawk anytime soon. Yeah, tank shock is now tied to the toughness of the chassis that it's casted on. So like on a like a Nemesis Dread Knight with with toughness 8, it's based off of that. So if you're over it, you still get the same rules, but it does lower the ceiling of the damage that you're going to be doing. So,
I'm back, by the way.
Yep.
She just needed her pacifier.
Oh, don't we all?
So tanks are going to see a huge improvement. Or you mean because of tank shock? Sorry, I missed the last like 45 seconds of.
Yeah, we were
chatting.
just kind of talking about the changes to tank shock, how it's toughness of the vehicle now instead of the strength of the weapon that's swinging, right? So,
Yeah. So this is actually, this opens up a well, I'll answer Grimaldus's question first. I mean, tank shock, so it's supposed to give you those like thematic views of like, your Land Raider crushing a unit of intercessors or whatever, right? That's what it's supposed to be for. And when it was based off the strength of the weapon, you had things like the Nemesis Dread Knight with a strength 14 weapon, which was usually higher toughness than what they were going into. So you're rolling 16 dice, which came out to an average of like 5.33 mortal wounds on you. So like, why wouldn't you tank shock, right? It's a lot of damage. But now they're changing it so the bigger the tank, like the Stompa, is going to have a bigger tank shock than, a Rhino or a Dread Knight. Yeah. So, yeah, I don't know. I think they'll do more with tank shock. I don't know if it's a huge buff to tanks though. Like you're not going to bring a repulsor executioner for tank shock. You're going to bring a repulsor executioner because it has 900 guns on it. Yeah, Thunder Hawk tank shock. There you go. Which isn't it T12? So it's the same as a Land Raider. Yeah.
It'll dump some dice on some people, but
yeah. I think this is thematically cool. This is interesting. It's going to stop it from being like a how do I plan my turn to use grenade and tank shock every turn or something, to be more like I really need to dump these guardsmen off of this objective. I just have a Land Raider. I can spend 1 CP and do an average of like five mortal wounds, right? That's where you're going to see it now. So, isn't the Chimera, yeah, Rogel Dorns are T12. The Chimeras are like T9.
Yeah.
Like, Lehman Russes are T11. I mean, but like, you also don't really want your Lehman Rush charging anything. So, again, it'll be like, you're making a decision, right? You're going to be like, can I charge this, tank shock it, and at least have more OC on the objective than if I just sit here and shoot, So, I'm fine with this. It makes Dread Knights less reliable in melee, but it's not like we were swimming in CP anyway, am I right?
Yeah, I think there's like, I don't know. I keep wanting to slap the swords back on my Nemesis Dread Knights because they look cool.
That's where I was going with. Well, you should have my three. Well, now you do have the 3D printed like real hammers, right? The big ones.
Yeah. I rocked those at the RTT.
Yeah. I heard some people saying that. The problem is it's still only strength 10.
Yeah.
With the Mighty Strike. And it's like D6 damage isn't much worse than D6 plus 1, but like the sweep is so sad. It's so like you're hitting on 2s, not 3s, like with the hammer, but like the sweep is 10 attack, strength 5, -1 damage.
Yeah.
The Terminator inside can get out and do almost that, but at strength 6 -2 damage. You know what I mean? Like it's just it's so sad.
They murdered that profile. It was like it lost a strength. Like, it lost a strength, a damage, and an AP on the sweep profile between 9th and 10th edition. Yeah. Left it in the teleportarium.
Yep, and just forgot about it, I guess.
Yeah.
I forgot to equip that inventory slot.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I still think the hammer is the better choice because we kill infantry really well as a whole army. We
Yeah.
don't kill high toughness vehicles very well, so I still think the hammers are the way to go because they're strength 14. There's almost nothing in the game you're not wounding on 3s.
Yeah, I think the argument would be in like a NDK SKU list of like I need something that can just wail on infantry a little bit better. Like, and when I say infantry, I mean like sister bodies or Eldar or something like that. But you know, you've got storm bolters and flamers for that. So I don't know.
So Damned Legion, I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure, yes, we can ally a Warhound. The question is why. It's 1,000 points and it doesn't do anything really.
Yeah.
Easy to hide from, so on and so forth. So yeah, I mean, it's some folks are gonna have that discussion where they're like, should I bring swords? I do agree that at least on the stock model, the sword is a way better. Tommy and I run these like giant hammers, these like big two-handed hammers that we 3D printed. They look a lot nicer, I think, and they look more like they're supposed to be strength 14, where actually, here's the hammer that comes in the Dread Knight, and it's like so tiny. It's this little, I don't know, it's not, anyway, it's small, it sucks. Yeah, I don't know. So, Tank Shock, Rackbait Ingress, Heroic Intervention went down to 1 CP. For melee armies, this is enormous. Do not underestimate this.
I am so excited about this because now your opponent is not like being able to Mists of Deimos 1 unit. You rapid ingress it behind the target that your opponent was going to charge, and now you're like, all right, I'm gonna heroic you if you come near me, because like you know, you're within charge range. It opens up so many cool like play patterns with Grey Knights. I'm excited to see what that does. So
Fire Overwatch was changed slightly. It declares now that it must be visible, and then you cannot target a Titanic unit.
I think that was the last
Was it?
dataslate. Yeah,
Oh,
I think
damn.
that was the 6-month dataslate.
I really wish they'd put in like they change it to blue or something if it was.
Yeah, basic change logs or like a plus or a minus, right?
Well,
Just
this lets you know how many Titanic units I play against, because
yeah,
that's never come up.
yeah.
Some movement stuff here, which if you guys want to read, you can. It doesn't affect us, so I'm skipping it. Skipping that. Yeah, a whole bunch of fact I'm not gonna read. Anyway, the core rules commentary changed a lot. The faction focus stuff changed some things too. Well, faction focus I think is the wrong terminology, but you know, those things that could prey on us, like T-Suns got, you know, Twist of Face got nerfed. Doombolt got the same thing that Vortex of Doom did. So Vortex was changed, so you can't target lone op units with it if you're outside of 12. Previously you could. I don't care. That makes sense to me. Lone op should be lone op. It was weird that it got around it in the first place. So what say you, Tommy?
Yeah, I think it's a good change. As much as it pains me to like, I will miss snaking a librarian to a cheeky spot and just blowing up a Calidus assassin. Like, it's like it's pretty obvious what they were intending to do with lone op, and like having these weird edge cases that got around it. Like, it's just doesn't make for clean gameplay and doesn't make for fun gameplay, in my opinion. So I think it's a good change, even though it negatively affects us.
I mean, with Vect being changed so hard too, so that's another thing we should probably bring up. So
I get the Vect change is super interesting to me because it's like you can build like it. The old way of playing with Vect was pretty flat. Like it's just like you pick a thing and cost more. But what it allows you to do is because it's now like an aura, you can sit it behind like you can sit your lone op like Kaladas Assassin in a safe spot behind an objective you really want to hold on like your opponent's go turn. And it's like the Blood Angels player that wanted to do like Lance Lethal and like one other stratagem now has to spend 4 CP to do what they want to do. And it's like you can create these really interesting like defensive postures with an aura of like all your all your juice is going to cost more. So I think it's a cool change. I think it's an interesting change, and it changes how those units will be designed and used instead of in lists instead of just yeah, I take a thing, it goes in the corner every turn, and like it does actions for me and makes your command points more or your
Yeah.
stratagems more
Any
expensive.
battle
So.
tactic you had. That's
hmm
another entire conversation. All those CP bandage, like band-aids were removed recently.
Yeah.
But on the screen here, we have this thing for psychic abilities, and it says when a hazardous weapon inflict one or more mortal wounds as a result of a failed hazardous check, if that weapon is also a psychic, are they inflicted by a psychic attack? And the answer is yes. That means that if you have a librarian leading a unit of Terminators and you fire the Purge Soul, which is precision and hazardous, and you hazardous yourself, you get your own 4-up Feel No Pain for the hazardous roll if you have to roll damage. So that's kind of interesting. Makes it less of a downside to go ahead and use that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Makes
not
it
gonna. This is
a little less painful.
33 pages, so I'm not gonna read everything, but pretty fascinating. Huge shakeup in the rules. Dataslate. What else? Oh, the stratagem stuff. So in the core rules, the dataslate changed how stratagems are. Do you want to take this one, Tommy?
Oh geez, the one that I'm like a little fuzzy on. No, so basically what they did is universally there used to be a lot of abilities and data sheet abilities that allowed you to make stratagems free, like the captain or the grandmaster, right? And what they did is they changed the language on that to where instead of it making it free, what it does is it just makes it reduced by 1 command point. So um, down, and it can can reduce it down to free. But they also did away with the um, kind of runaround that you could do where you could do 2 stratagems, right? So you could AOC one unit for a command point and then use your free stratagem to AOC a second unit. You can't do that anymore unless there's a specific like it's specifically called out as saying like you can do this. Like for example, the overwatching ability on the Gloctopus, I don't know its actual name right now off the top of my head. The little like 6-gun Necron um uh what is that
Yeah,
thing
I
called?
don't remember either.
Yeah. Anyways, that thing can specifically says it can overwatch for free, and because it specifically calls out the stratagem, it is an exception to that.
Right.
Um, so I think it closes the box on like some of the shenanigans you could do with stacking like 3 different stratagems with different armies, and
Yeah.
then the other change that they did was for endless swarm nids, guard. I think there's some other ones.
Gene
Basically, any
Stealer. No, Gene Stealers. It's like their army rule. So never mind. Ignore me.
yeah, yeah, like any stratagem that like you use to get like an entire unit back is capped at once per game now. So like you can't just get gargoyles back infinitely and play with 3,000 points worth of gargoyles in a given game, which I think is like you know I feel bad for the people who have 140 gargoyles or whatever it is, but like it's also not a super fun way to play into, or like I can't imagine it's super fun to play as. Um, just the back pain alone.
A barrel of
Shuffling all,
monkeys.
Yeah, right. And so I think like again, I think it's a really good change for the health of the game and just like the playability and just the general fun. Um, recursion is a incredibly powerful thing and it can go off the rails pretty quickly. So,
So, so how this affects Grey Knights is, we have the Grandmaster Dread Knight can reduce the cost of any two pieces. He already had this, but it said you can reduce the cost of any stratagem by 1 CP. Well, when those only affected battle tactics, it basically meant you can go ahead and use Radiant Strike on him for 1 CP. Now you can use Haloed in Soulfire on him for 1 CP. If you have Grandmasters on foot, like if you have multiple, not saying you should, I'm just saying if you did, you could like miss 1 unit for free. You could Halo in Soulfire another unit for 1. And then if you had a third Grandmaster, like, you could Armor of Contempt for a free, right? It's still limited to once a battle on that specific data sheet. But it does mean there is more that the Grandmaster can do than just, oh, I'm going to give us like 1 free reroll or 1 free death from the warp or 1 free like Radiant Strike. Because those are really all he could do before. There were other core stratagems you could use, like go to ground or whatever, but no one would do that because it's these leading Terminators, right? So, anyway, so yeah, the point is, it does give us a little more flexibility. I still think it's weird that we have the once per battle restriction where other captains don't. Well, what are you gonna do? Maybe they'll fix that when the codex comes out, or maybe they don't. I know when the game was released, the way that the rules, like, I understand why that stipulation was in place, because you could have had like 3 Grandmasters miss away 3 units, and then you just can't interact with the Grey Knight army for a whole turn, or for a whole game potentially, if they could just do it over and over and over. So I understand why they did it on release, but now that they have all these other things in place, I definitely don't understand why it's a once per battle. And our Grandmasters are good, but they're not so good that you're going to bring 3 of them,
Yeah, definitely.
So that's huge. Read all this stuff if you have any questions about that, because stratagem use is wildly different now, especially if you're a Space Marine player or play another army that gets a lot of free or stratagem modifications. It's all different now. So read all that. And I think that's it. Like, we didn't go in depth, that's fine. But the things that affect us the most are tank shock, grenade, pivoting if you have a lot of Dread Knights or Land Raiders, some hazardous stuff, and the strat change is huge. But no other big changes. Dread Knights went up a little bit. Redeemer went up a significant amount. Storm Ravens went up, which we weren't using anyway. Crow went up. Rip.
Pouring out for Russell Crowe. Yeah, I think relatively speaking, like GK, I know the Goonhammer article, they said they were losers of the data slate, but it's like, yeah, they were, but like it was a specific style of like GK that got hit, like,
which is
there were
fine.
already, yeah, which is totally fine. Like, yeah, like I think the Nemesis Dread Knight Land Raider spam list, like, it's super good, but it's also just like, it doesn't feel like Grey Knights at all. Like, it's not Terminators and Power Armor and Psychers jumping around doing stuff.
Agreed.
And like, the lists that there have been other lists that have been winning GTs that were not doing. They had like three NDKs in them, right? And then like a bunch of power armor, and some of them had redeemers, some of them didn't. I think there's enough depth in what you can do in list building to where like you can manage around the 30 extra points if you were taking 3 NDKs and make a pretty solid list that I think is well positioned to be doing actions all over the board, controlling board space, and pushing up primary or playing the secondary game, however you want to slant it. So I think Grey Knights are still in a pretty good slot. I don't think it's doom and gloom, but I think the folks that were like myself who were getting carried by NDK Redeemer spam might have to get good. So
Yeah, I agree. I think we ended up. I mean, we didn't specifically get buffed, but it's kind of like when the January. Well, not January. Was it March now? April. Whatever. When the last data slate came out and like CSM got trashed, Eldari got trashed, like all the top, like the hardest hitting armies got hit pretty hard. We got buffed by proxy because we didn't get nerfed as hard as like they did, right? So if the things on like higher up the food chain than you get hit, then you get buffed by proxy. So like, did all of our units go down to 38 points each? No. Did we still get a buff? I think we did because of the indirect nerf. T-Suns got hit a little bit. Like CSM, I guess, got hit a lot. Orcs got hit. We haven't talked about that at all.
yeah.
So like Green Tide, they used to have a 5-up invul all the time. Now they only have a 5-up if there are 10 or more models in the unit, and otherwise it's a 6. Bully Boys, the mech is a 5-up Philippine now instead of a 4 during WoW, which is huge. That's a massive change in the amount of like damage that actually goes through. So these armies that could fight us pretty hard are gonna have seen significant changes. So that gives us a buff into those matchups.
Yep.
Oh yeah, BT got Ironstorm clipped hard. I mean, Ironstorm got clipped just in, like hard in general.
Yeah.
But like Dark Angels were doing it, Black Templar were doing it. Like they were all making it bad.
Yeah.
So yes, don't feel bad being a Green Knight player right now because we got effectively untouched, and a lot of stuff that could eat us alive got changed, like the warp talent change, which is hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah. So speaking of though, I know you put together a couple lists, Tommy. Do you want to go into those lists real quick?
We'll go through them real quick.
All right, so we'll do your 1970 point army right now. So remember, we don't have any updated data files yet, so this is a 2,000 point list.
With 30 points extra for the 3 Dread Knights that I'm taking in it.
Right.
Yeah, so the character slots, let me let it open up on a different screen here. I don't have to read just plain text. So the character slots, it's pretty similar to like some of the lists that I've been running that haven't been just NDK spam, Redeemer spam. It's the 3 characters are Caldor Drago, Brotherhood Librarian with Inescapable Wrath, Grandmaster Nemesis Dread Knight with the Sigil of Exigence, 2 Terminator squads to cozy up to the Librarian and Drago, 2 Strike squads, 2 Purgation squads, 2 regular Nemesis Dread Knight squad, or 2 regular Nemesis Dread Knights, and then 2 Razorbacks. The Razorbacks are something that like I think are a usable tech piece. They were usable before, but I think there's with my experience with purgation squads and hiding behind walls and stuff like that, like being able to jump, like you jam a Razorback forward onto an objective and then to stage, and then the following turn, if they put anything on the objective, you scoot the Razorback to the side, and then you shoot re-rolling to wound incinerators at whatever's on that objective. because the Razorbacks have a rule of if it hits anything, the unit gets full rerolls to wound that hopped out of it.
If
So
it
I
if
think
it if it hits, don't you want to bring the assault cannons instead, just for the higher chances to hit?
you've got Storm Bolters in there, so like between that and like the las cannon, I like the las cannon because of the I've gone back and forth on it, like the assault cannon versus the
Mhm.
las cannons, but like I like having the extra, high AP to throw at
I
something
guess
like last.
I guess if you're hitting on threes, right? You have
Yeah,
2 to 4 attacks from the Storm Bolter and then 2 las cannon attacks. And if you just have to hit,
you just have to hit once, right?
yeah.
So I'll play test it and see, like if I just get scammed by the las cannons too many times, I'll probably throw the assault cannons in there. But
Hilariously enough, because of the twin las, you actually have rerolls in this list into
yeah,
not just the
We got-
Grandmaster in melee against monsters and eagles.
yeah, we got our rerolls back
Yeah,
finally.
there they are, buddy. Yeah.
Yep. So the main focus of it is to just like it's close to like an MSU list that, well, I guess it's all MSU, but like trying to get as many pieces floating around the board, doing damage, and being able to have holes that
Yeah.
I don't feel bad about leaving on an objective to just do actions in the form of a Razorback.
That's true.
Yep.
And then
'Cause their
also,
main,
like, there's a lot of armies out there that have those like deep striking threats, but they're usually infantry bodies. So
Yep.
like, if you leave your, if you do the standard thing where, okay, my strike squad sticky is my my home field objective, and now we fuck off and go do something else. You leave it open to be deep struck in. And I don't just mean 3-inch deep striking inceptors either. I mean like warp talons, storm boys. Hell, even like from a reinforcements, you could potentially have like a 20-man guard squad, just strategic reserve up into your into your business. So if you leave an 85 point unit back there that's T9, some wounds, right? Now it's like nobody's gonna fire indirect at it really. Like you could hold your backfield too for not as much as like a strike squad.
yep.
So
And it's large enough to where if you plop it straight on the center, like nobody can 3-inch deep strike you.
yes.
So,
Yeah. So
um,
that's actually pretty interesting.
Yep.
And if you ever do run interceptors, you could start them in there, and then they have effectively a 15-inch movement on the turn that they get out. So.
If I were to do that, I probably would have those just be rhinos or a rhino, and then like,
Well,
spend a point
Razorbacks could
for it.
still have a 5-man in it, so I mean,
Yeah, they can,
yeah.
but it's like the main focus of the Razorbacks is to get the reroll wounds on the incinerators. That it's
Oh, right, they have to
juicy.
pile out, and then yeah.
Yep.
I got you. Okay.
Yep. So yeah, I mean it's a pretty straightforward list. It's a lot of small bodies and 2-up bodies floating all over the place trying to score points, and hope we get the hope we're down on primary in the middle of the game so we can get the gambit. So,
Just drop Drago.
drop Drago.
3-inch deep strike Drago on the enemy's home field for 20 points.
Send them in.
Cool. Yeah, I don't really see like. I love the 2 strike squads.
Yep.
So will Gamesworks or I assume Grey Knight players be looking at taking Castle and Crow? I don't know yet. So
Yeah.
So go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, I think it's going to depend on how the meta shakes out, right? Like, I think if Green Tide are still a thing, there's a pretty compelling reason to do it. Without the reroll ones on Green Tide now for their saves, like, the math is actually pretty favorable to you just Thanos snapping a 20-man boy squad out of existence when they come in, and like the Crow's squad with purifiers has some interesting play choices on how once you start taking casualties in a specific order, because depending on how the game is going, like you're gonna get +1 to hit, and if you need the shooting, you start sacking the guys with halberds or nemesis force weapons to eventually get down to half strength, and then now you have incinerators that are +1 to wound, which is pretty good. And then, or you go the opposite direction and you need a melee skirmishing unit that is now hitting on twos, wounding like boys on twos, or even marines on twos, because it'll get +1 to wound with the strength 6 weapon. So it's like it's a pretty cool unit. I think I need to get it on the table more to wrap my head around it. And,
I agree. Yeah, I'm
yeah.
at that same point where like I was saying earlier, like I painted Crow up. I think he looks nice. I painted 10 purifiers. I've never put any of them on the table.
Yeah.
And I'd like to, but I think he went up. I think he went up just because, as Tommy alluded to, a lot of battle line are infantry in this game. And the Crow brick evaporates infantry.
Yeah.
Especially once they have all their little buffs going on. So like, you get fewer purifying flame hits if you have, 5 guys left in Crow, but you're hitting on twos and you're automatically wounding on twos into infantry anyway, but
and it's a really durable unit too. Like I've had the 10-man Crow brick tank 2 riptides of shooting with AOC, and like they came out on the other side with like 5 or 6 models left, and I was like,
and cover.
Yeah, you need the you don't get cover against Tau because marker lights. But,
oh, right.
AOC still makes it a pretty good bit. So
2-up base armor is pretty good, friendos.
Hell yeah, man.
So we'll see. I think that's why they gave him a 15-point increase, is they didn't want to see like, oh, okay, well, we went from like 5 Dread Knights to 3 Dread Knights and the Crow Bomb in every list, so.
Yep.
They don't seem to care that Drago's in almost every list, but I guess they care if Crow's in the list. I don't know, whatever. On to your next list, my friend.
Yeah. So this one is kind of going back to basics on like the trying to make a Terminator style list that still has some Dread Knight shooting. That's always been one of my tricky rubbing points of like with like the 30 Terminator bricks, is like if something goes wrong with it, like sometimes your Terminators are just stuck and they die. And I think having the three Dread Knights gives you that nice little bit of shooting to carve out chaff, or move blockers, or play shooting angles that clear up lanes for you. But you also get 2 big bricks, right? You get a Terminator brick that gets stapled onto onto Drago.
Drago, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get Grandmaster. I think did I put the heavy weapons on? I didn't. So the Paladin squad would be ran.
No, you did. On the Paladin
with Psy cannons. Yeah. So I really like Psy cannons on the Sigil Grandmaster unit, because it just like you can actually get them in positions where the opponent can't get cover, right? And you actually do get that 1 extra pip of AP, and it does make the difference, and can help chunk a little bit of damage and be a surprising shooting threat. And so and who doesn't like 20 Terminators that if you shoot them they zip out of existence? And then you got 2 strike squads to
don't forget the wombo combo now of the Grandmaster makes it so if they're -1 to hit, they're not actually -1 to hit. They're always hitting on 2s, and then you have that weird thing where it's like, all right, if I get within 9 of you, you disappear.
Yep.
But if I shoot you, you disappear. So now I have to there's a ribbon of like interaction zone that I get at that point,
You just watch your opponent take psychic damage from trying to
Yeah.
figure out how to jump through all those hoops.
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, and so one thing that I had consistent through both the lists is making sure I bring the Grandmaster with Nemesis Grandmaster and Nemesis Dread Knight, because I think Knights are going to be back in the meta. I think we have like both Chaos Knights and Imperial Knights. I think they're going to make a pretty big resurgence with the I can walk through walls if I'm a big knight
Yeah.
now. Like that's pretty scary, and like being able to have a Grandmaster off of the board, you rapid ingress it, and then watch it pick up a 450-point model in a single activation, like that's good tech in my opinion.
Let's also, so for those of you who didn't read that, so one of the changes is Titanic models can now move. Well, I mean, I guess they always could, but so they can move over 4-inch terrain or shorter without any penalties, right? And they can't end on it, but they can move over it. Now what they can do is they can just Kool-Aid Man through a wall, through a ruin, and they get to do it regardless. Like they still get to do it, but then they have to roll a d6, and on a 1 they're battle shocked. So you can have two big knights come crashing just directly towards that middle objective out of their deployment zone on game 1 and guarantee that they're in range, and one might be battle shocked or whatever, but that did change too. And that goes for is that just Imp Knights or is that Chaos Knights as well?
It's Chaos Knights and Imp Knights.
Yeah.
So I think there's still like Imperial Knights, it's just you're gonna see the big knights clomping all over the place. But I think there is some teeth to the double Rampager, and then like 4x4 War Dogs and Brigands and Carnivores list, because like I mean it is a vibe trying to stare down two Rampagers coming straight at you, because they can advance and charge, and like it's gonna take you some time to cut through those. So
Are the
yeah.
Rampagers big ones?
Yeah, they're big ones. They're big melee knights. I think they're like 340 points or something like that.
Okay.
So like, and then you throw like Penelope on it. Penelope, is that how you say it? Anyways, it's basically AOC all the time, or you throw like there's one where if there's an enhancement that you can throw on it that you have to take a battle shock test every time they go into melee combat with you, so you can't use stratagems. So yeah, I think that like those big knight pressure lists are going to come back, and having a good answer for it is you got to have it.
It's interesting that, like, I'm not trying to say one is better than the other. One obviously costs a lot more points, but like one of the things I'm looking at is our chaplains are still only 75 points.
Yeah.
So like a chaplain with escapable raft is still 5 points less expensive than a grandmaster on foot base.
Yeah.
And it's like now they get +1 to their leadership, so they're rolling leadership on 5. They have the they have the -1, the dread aura, which comes in handy more often than you'd think. And then also they are +1 to wound. Yeah. So like you go from, I was doing the math, and yes, I know it's kind of stupid because the unit's like twice as expensive, but if you charge a grandmaster and 5 terminators into a war dog, you don't pick it up on average. If you charge a terminator chaplain and 5 terminators into a war dog, you do actually pick it up on average. And so when you're thinking about like, 4x4, right, instead of like the 13 war dog, like whatever, suddenly it's like, if I have a chaplain or 2, not only does that make my game into them better in the melee, but it also makes them better into their like battle shock weirdness thing too, because your leadership is 5 now. So.
Yeah, no, I think chaplain stonks are up. Like I think there's probably a list in there floating out there for chaplains, because like I've taken chaplains a couple times, and I've liked them every time. Like
Yeah.
they just do cool stuff. I've never gelled it into like a cohesive list. It's always just like just jam 3 chaplains in there and
Yeah.
pray to the emperor.
Three chaplains with 3 5-mans. Let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did it into Tau and it went pretty well because I was able to like punch up into Riptides pretty well
Wow.
and wounding them on 4s is start skewing the math in your favor pretty
Yeah.
well. So
I mean, it makes the guard matchup better too. Like if they start going even heavier into like Lehman and Russes, right now we wound them on 5s and you'll be wounding them on 4s. That's, with lethal hits on the charge, like that's actually pretty big.
Yep.
That's a big swing. So,
Yep.
you're
still 4-up, which can, go either way, but
sure.
It's, and that's like another I think selling point for the Grandmaster and Nemesis Dread Knight, because like guard there's going to be like a lot of Lehman Russ floating around, and being able to just bonk them with hammers is good.
Yeah, the problem with them is that though you like charge, you kill one, sure, or like maybe even get a big charge in on the Rogel Dorn and you kill that, and then the other 7 Lehman Russes turn around and kill you.
Nah, dude. Just make your 4-ups.
Yeah, just make your 4-ups. Just roll well and you'll win the game.
Yeah, the game is really easy when you roll well.
Yeah, if you only roll 6s.
Yeah.
So. It's very interesting. This like all these little changes really make it so like everybody, even if your faction didn't get touched a whole lot, you still have to like really think about your new list, because I'm really curious to see what the battle line thing changes. Because what, half of the new Pariah Nexus secondaries involve battle line? Is it half or is it a third?
You're talking about like the mission spice things that they've got. Yeah, I think it's like 2 or 3. Like, because you've got the one where it's like,
so it's like a quarter of them.
Yeah, you can do like shooting and do actions. The other one is you can do actions and melee. There's another one that allows you stalwart, which is go to ground for free or heroic for free. And then I think and then banners. So 4.
Okay, which is about,
a decent amount.
And there's supposed to be 18 cards in this deck. There was 16 in the last deck. There are 18 in this one.
Oh, those aren't the secondaries. Those are just like the mission, like Chilling Rain type of things.
Oh right, no,
Yeah,
no, you're right.
The mission modifiers, right?
Yeah.
Have you seen some of the GW layouts? There's 8 of them now. There are some wild ones. There's one where it's like, I think it's layout 7. It is. Let me see if I can dig up a picture of it.
Is it just like a melee brawl in the middle of the field or something? It's like
it's just like
a Colosseum of LOS.
Thunderdome.
Yeah, it's like, no one can shoot in, but no one can get out.
Yeah. Let me see here. Find it. The tournament companion is also something that came out.
I didn't even see that.
Same time.
Man,
So,
it's so obnoxious when they do that.
they didn't make an announcement, and like everybody was focused on, here it is. Terrain layout.
Yeah, I got it right here. The tournament companion. Well, that's
Like
wild.
layout 7 is very flat. I mean, it's geared to be on the new sweeping engagement. Is it sweeping engagement or the one that's like it's the new Dawn of War that's like got the Tetris looking layout? Forget the name of it, but it just everything. All of the terrain is oriented north south. Like there's no tilt to it, nothing. It's just like it's just like the terrain layouts have changed pretty significantly, so I'm interested to see how Tacoma is going to shape up.
All right, I've got it up on the screen for those of you who want to see. Here's the card errata. They already have card errata, which is insane to me. All right, so yeah, they have 8 different terrain layouts now. I'm scrolling through them right now. Layout 1 looks the same. Layout 2 looks the same. 3 is very different. 4 is very different. I like how they said never, like, in the Leviathan one, they're like, don't measure anything. And then in this one, they're like, you nerds are going to measure it anyway, so here's some measurements.
Terrain placement by vibes only, please.
Yeah. Layout 5 is like, yeah, you're right. Almost
Yeah,
everything's horizontal.
yeah.
Layout 7, everything is vertical. What's the blue thing with the dots? Is that
So that's
like
supposed to be
difficult
like that
terrain or something?
small. That's supposed to be like, I think, the small acrylic base, or oh yeah. So that's supposed to be like the part of the base or part of the terrain that is 2 inches or less. So
Ah, okay.
you know how
Got it.
there's like on a lot
Yeah.
of, yeah, it's
Yeah.
like that
Like the
scatter piece that a
T
lot of
and it,
people,
yeah, okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
like people put barricades or whatever there now. So
Yeah.
um, which I think is cool. Like it the tournament companion seems pretty well put together. Like you've got measurements on terrain, you've got um like it seems pretty well put together. I still need to wrap my head around like what are going to be the stinkers on the mission list, but like
Layout 8 is the Thunderdome, kind of.
yeah, layout eight's weird because all of
Like,
that's obscuring in the center. So
yep.
like what
But
like
but vehicles can get in there, but they can't
yep,
shoot into there.
yep,
And then you only have like one good firing lane, like right up and down, like north south, to really shoot into there. So that's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, the layouts are I'm really excited to see not only the data slate but also like Pariah Nexus and start exploring it a bit. I think there's going to be some missions that I don't think tournaments will play like Servo Skulls, but like I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of really fun ways to play now, and it feels like they breathed a lot of it's got a new breath of fresh air in the meta right now. So, but
Yeah, it's
yeah,
good. There are
good
only
stuff.
2 Dawn of War missions now.
Yep.
That's interesting. A lot of these like tipping point ones, which is the ones that they're like the step.
That I think that's the one I was thinking of, a tipping point. That looks like the Tetris game.
Yeah.
So yeah.
All right, man. Well, it's almost 11.
Yeah. Yeah.
Past my bedtime.
Yep. So
So I should be closing this down soon. I'll give you guys a few more minutes for some more questions. But hey, thank you, Tommy.
yep.
Congratulations on your win. And you wanted to plug something, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm on like my team Aegis, they are putting on a major in October. Let me grab the date. It's the follow-up to Cascade Clash. Um man,
Man.
I had it pulled up and I lost the tab. So let me get that pulled up in a sec, but for the exact date. But I really enjoyed it was the first one that that we put on back this March, and it's a really good time. It's held in Mount Vernon, Washington. It's a 2-day event. They give last year they did awards for like best in faction. So and like it was a really good time. It was a nice encapsulation of what I think Aegis is about, where you have a really good community, but you also have a really competitive community. So everybody's friendly, but you get really good games in. So I will pull that date up really quick, and so I can plug it correctly. It's October 5th. So you can find it on BCP, um, and hopefully see some folks there. So
Man, these these terrain layouts are wild, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. One and two are pretty normal. Everything else is very different.
Yep.
Like depending on the deployment for layout 5, that is just that's basically planet bowling ball.
Yeah. That one, God help you if you get what's hammer and anvil is like left to right, right? Where you got the big
Yeah.
chunks on the left. Yeah, that
Yeah. Hammer and anvil is every every guy with a gladiator lancer, which went down in points, by the way. Every guy with a gladiator lancer, every guy with a repulsor executioner, every knight player is gonna want like terrain layout 5 on Dawn or on hammer and anvil. Dawn of War is not quite so bad, although you still have this really big like northwest to southeast firing lane. But
yeah.
man, that's rough on.
Yeah, I think there'll be terrain layouts that just don't get used. Like terrain layout, was it like 2 or 3?
1 and 2 are normal ones, just right out of the Leviathan book.
Terrain layout.
So 1 and 2 are fine.
I think was
3 is weird, but probably fine. 4 is north south. Like as long as you don't play this one, Dawn of War, you're Hammer in it, or Dawn of War, you're probably okay.
Yeah.
Terrain layout 5 is just really fucking weird. And like 7 is unappealing to look at, but might be a decent layout, honestly.
Yeah, it looks like if you're doing like the left side, right side type of deployments, like it seems like it'd be cool. But I think if you were trying to do like north to south, that would just be
awful. north south would be awful for this one.
Yeah. So
and terrain layout 8 is just bizarre.
Yeah. Like a couple of them on here like look like someone just scattered, like it looks like the table after
on half of it,
like,
and then just
like you're pulling up
it over.
all of your objective markers and like all of the terrain scattered, and you're like, good game. And then they're like, all right, this is what we're playing on next game.
Good game. Grimaldus is asking if we talked about Vortex of Doom. We did. Briefly. I mean, we didn't go into detail. It's just, they changed it so that it doesn't get around lone op anymore. Doombolt got the same treatment. All of those abilities got the same treatment. So it's not that big of a deal. Obviously, this is the way they intended for the game to be played, and not for you to be able to pop a Calidus because you could just see her hairband from 16 inches away. So
it doesn't red hairband.
Yeah, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
So that's the Vortex change. Yeah. Well, hey man, I think I'm gonna close down the stream now. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your comments and your questions. Thank you, Tommy, for being on. I know we had some off-camera drama there because like my baby did not want to go down till basically the time we went live, so I was afraid I'd have to cancel it for like a bit there. But yeah, we do these live. Yeah, we do these live because we enjoy the community interaction. So we'll catch you on the next one, and don't forget to call your parents.